timer starts now.
Okay, great. So I'm here to tell you about MOOCulus, which is really part of a course that my team and I launched on Coursera a couple months ago. The course is Calculus 1. And we've got the requisite lecture videos that you might come to expect. We've got a free open source textbook that you can download. We've got weekly quizzes. The weekly quizzes have 10 questions per quiz, which raises a question about questions. How many questions should there be on this quiz? And the problem is that this depends on the student. Right? Some students should have more questions on their quiz than other students. So to make this possible, we've built another website, mooculus.osu.edu, which might leave you wondering, what is MOOCulus? MOOCulus is not Cowculus, right? It's really an online homework system that we've built. But unlike other online homework systems, MOOCulus comes back with a hidden Markov model. It's also open source. You can download it right now on GitHub and install it on your own computers. And if you were to do that, this is what you might see. You might see an exercise computing the derivative of a polynomial. And you can't really see this maybe at the distance you're at, but you see there's a polynomial there. And in order to facilitate questions about randomly generated polynomials, we've built a computer algebra system in JavaScript. We've also got a hint system. There's a button there that you can click on to get help, and if you click that button, you'll start being led through the problem, and it'll explain to you how to do the problem. And we've got this progress bar. Right? This is the hidden Markov model. The problem is that student understanding is invisible. I'm fairly certain that attaching the brain scanners that I'd like to put on my students is a FERPA violation. What is visible is the hints that the student requests and the answers that they submit, whether they're correct or incorrect. And the hidden Markov model takes that visible data and produces from it an estimate of student understanding. So the students get a page that looks like this with green bars that are filled in on tasks that we think they understand, yellow bars that they should do more work on, and these red bars where they seem quite confused. So now, what's the real benefit to something like this? Well, part of it is you might think it's just cheaper, right? Now we don't even need TAs. But it's more than that. It's really supposed to be better. I mean, we've already commodified education, right? This is not the world's greatest educational experience. It's a lot better if we get more people doing mathematics, right? That's a better experience for the student. I'd much rather they just do more problems. So if we're really trying to personalize their education, then that kind of leads us to another question. I mean, if I want this to be about one-on-one education, what's so massive about this experience? Right? And people had this mistaken idea that the M in MOOC stands for huge enrollment numbers. And I guess it does. But the enrollment isn't really the big deal. Right? The point is that that's only a means to an end. And the end is data. Right? A lot of data. In the last 10 weeks, 10 person years have been sacrificed to MOOCulus. And people have submitted 2 million correct answers on our system. And this lets us produce histograms and covariance matrices where you can kind of see that certain problems, I mean, if you interpret this appropriately, are really more important in some sense or better predictors of overall performance than other problems. Right? And that's really interesting data. So what are we going to do with all of this data? Well, the point is we can now start to sort of try to evolve better classes, right? This stuff is providing a fitness function that tells us when education is working. The problem, though, is that education also requires some sort of heritable variation. And that's not something that I can get with a regular course, but with a MOOC, which fixes the form of the interactive experience, I can now have something that's evolvable. I've fixed the form of the classroom, which means it's the sort of thing that evolution can act on. If this doesn't make a lot of sense, here's sort of an analogy, right? This is just some random walk, right? And you can do lots and lots of random walks. And my claim is that teaching is a lot like this random walk, right? Every year, I'm slated to teach another course, which is very similar to the course I taught last year, and I do it slightly differently for no good reason. Right? And contrast this with if I actually had an honest feedback mechanism, right? A very small amount of feedback makes me get better, And the point here is not to emphasize that MOOCs are massive or that they're online. The point is that MOOCs offer data-driven feedback, which actually might improve education in the long run, right? So we really are at some sort of fork in the road, right? And one of those is MOOCs. MOOCs might not be great right now, but they're rigged to get better because they've got this feedback mechanism in place. And the question is whether or not the rest of the university is going to get on board with that. And you think about, 50 years from now, right? I mean, my grandchildren will have some very exciting choice. They'll either be taught by a human being or they'll be taught by a Cylon, right? And the Cylon will have some sort of hidden Markov model and the best cognitive science available to really understand, how to teach effectively, right? And I'd much rather, that my great-grandchildren be taught by the Cylons. So thank you.